I'm still waiting for the people who have condoned the riots, the people who have done nothing to stop the riots, and the people who carry out the rioting to back what they say in terms of these peaceful protests being about racial issues. These people, of every color by the way, scream Black Lives Matter when in reality we've been getting a pretty good taste of communism, other radical far leftism, and Islamic civilization jihad, while the rioters have taken advantage of a society besieged by a situation no American has had to deal with before: the lockdown and shutdown of our way of life. Don't believe me? Just ask these fine people that were in Oakland, California over the weekend. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me once again for some things that need to be said here on MRCTV. I'm Nick Kangadis. Okay, now that probably wasn't the first time you've seen the clip I showed at the top, but even if you hadn't seen it, compare it to this. You've probably also seen Iranians chanting "Death to America" as well. It's not like they've only done it once. My point is that just last year, Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei said this.
مرگ بر آمریکا یعنی مرگ بر شما چند تایی که اون گروهی که دارید اداره میکنید کشورتون رو. مراد اینه. حالا در این دوره اینان، در دوره دیگر هم دیگران. بحث ملت آمریکا نیست. ثانیاً تا وقتی که دولت آمریکا و رژیم آمریکا همین شرارت، همین دخالت، همین خباثت، همین رذالت رو در اعمال خودش داره، این مرگ بر آمریکا از دهان ملت ایران نخواهد افتاد.
In a way, the rioters and far left activists who chant "Death to America" want the same thing: the end to the Western and, more importantly, the American way of life. But there's a silver lining, my friends. What people like the Ayatollah and communist rioters don't take into account is that we, the people, are the true rulers of America. Sure, we've given up, knowingly or not, a lot of our freedoms and rights in exchange for some illusion of safety, as George Carlin once brilliantly said. Well, how safe do you feel when you can't trust pretty much any news about a questionable pandemic? How safe do you feel when so many of our major cities and some of our smaller ones are lit on fire and destroyed in the name of Marxism?
The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
How safe do you feel when people are literally being shot in the streets for not thinking and believing the same things as those who would shoot you without a moment's hesitation? And it's not just violence we need to worry about. It's the communists that have already infiltrated our American system in the last 5 or 6 decades. In particular, our justice system and our political system. Notice how many politicians, judges, and district attorneys push far left activism instead of applying and adhering to our Constitution. Billionaire George Soros, who at this point is the world's Emperor Palpatine, has for years now pumped money into local DA and judge races to essentially get activists in charge of our justice system. He's done similar for mayoral races in big cities across the country. He and other philanthropists have dumped tons of money into efforts to destabilize our cities from within. Just look at this Washington Post article from 2014, 6 years ago, before Trump was even a thought to run for president, which talks about Soros's Open Society foundations, among others, essentially trying to shape the transition of cities, changing from your run-of-the-mill politician to an activist taking charge, like Washington, D.C.'s Muriel Bowser and New York City's Warren Wilhelm. Excuse me, Bill de Blasio. Bowser has been shaped into just the type of Manchurian mayor that Soros would hope for. Just look at the latest coming from the DC mayor. Bowser is now targeting dozens of monuments in Washington, D.C., including the Washington Monument and Jefferson Memorial. The mayor and her commissioned task force has recommended, quote, renaming, relocating, or adding context to dozens of monuments, schools, parks, and buildings because of their namesake's participation in slavery or racial oppression, unquote, according to NBC News. Didn't the radical media and leftist politicians laugh at Trump a few years ago for saying that Washington and Lincoln and Jefferson were next in the statue debate? This is what I'm talking about. They don't care if black lives are taken. They are simply using black lives that are taken as an excuse to foment the kind of change the left has wanted for decades. If they didn't have a motive to grab as much power as they can, they wouldn't care if a black, white, brown, or any other color American was shot directly in front of them. Don't believe me again? All right. Then why is it that these activists haven't marched or rioted once for the dozens that have died during these peaceful protests in the last few months? How many times do these activists have to say, by any means necessary, for people to listen? They are radical and completely dedicated to the cause, much like the communists, other radical far leftists, and Islamic jihadists I mentioned earlier. Communists have useful idiots. Other radical far leftists are the useful idiots. And Islamic jihadists use suicide bombers without a second thought, both physically and systemically. These communists, far leftists, and Islamic jihadists have been trying to take over the world for over a century at this point, and I don't see them slowing down their efforts anytime soon. I'm not calling for more of the violence that has been plaguing America. That's not the way to go. But it's just about time that we stand beside her and guide her so that we can freely say without persecution or a sneer, God bless America. What's your take? Have I completely lost it this time? Or are you picking up what I'm putting down? Let me know in the comments, where I do read most of them and respond to some. If you like this video, don't forget to share it and give it a thumbs up. Those are the two best ways to let us know you want us to keep these videos coming. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so that YouTube might actually let you know when MRCTV comes out with a new video if they haven't taken it down already. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. For MRCTV, I'm Nick Kangadis.